Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ruby Rogues podcast. This week on our panel, we have John Epperson.
Hello, everyone.
Luke Stutters.
Hi, everyone.
I'm Charles Max Wood from devchat.tv. And this week, we have a special guest. That's Sean, is it Marcia?
Yes, Marcia.
Awesome. I think we've had you on before, if I'm remembering right. But do you want to just remind people who you are?
Sure. Hey, I'm Sean. I created this thing called Ruby for Good that basically gets developers to use our skills for good, doing meaningful work.
Awesome.
Are you stuck at home climbing the walls when you should be hanging out with the community at the latest conference to get canceled? Are you wondering where to hear your JavaScript heroes like Amy Knight and Douglas Crockford and Chris Heilman? After the cancellations, I decided to put on a JavaScript conference for you, online. I invited my favorite folks from around the web and got them to come speak at an online event just for you. Go to jsremoteconf.com and check out our speakers and schedule. The conference is on May 14th and 15th. Come join us at an online conference that we guarantee will keep you safe and keep you informed. jsremoteconf.com.
Do you want to just give us a brief rundown of what Ruby for Good is?
Yeah, definitely. So it's a couple things. Like it's hard to kind of nail down. Like a lot of people know us for the events we put on, and so like we'll put on kind of like conference. Like I don't like to use the word hackathon because I think the word hackathon has been kind of corrupted by the like toxic people in our community. These events where you just kind of go and burn yourselves out. But we do kind of like a long weekend-long retreat, like code retreat, where we build software for like civic and like nonprofit organizations, like diaper banks, food banks, women's shelters, places like that, like places doing good in the world. And then we also continue on the work outside of the events. So it's like a year-long mission of good. So we, people are contributing, submitting pull requests throughout the year.
Nice. So, I went on the website and I'm seeing a whole bunch of projects from 2017, 2016. I'm a little curious as we get started. I mean, what's the criteria for a project? Is it pretty broad, or are you looking for specific causes, or what are we looking at here?
So yeah, that's a great question. So we don't, as long as it's like helping people. Like in the past couple of years, we've been focusing on projects that are helping like more than just like one single nonprofit. Like while it's great just to help a single place, solve a single problem, we've been focusing on projects like, the diaper bank app that a lot of people know about, where, it's helping now. I think there's 100 and some diaper banks across the country using it. And so we're trying to focus on projects where we can be a force multiplier, but we still do these tiny little nonprofits. And then each year, how it works is we try and organize the projects kind of around a theme, like things that we feel kind of capture the, like how people are feeling. So like this year we're, I guess depending on what happens with the coronavirus, like this year we're probably going to be doing a lot of projects kind of around the environment and, helping people trying to focus on that area.
Gotcha. I'm trying to make the connection between the coronavirus and the environment, but...
Oh, sorry. Well, so like with the coronavirus is we don't know necessarily what's going to be happening this year as far as Ruby for Good, and having an in-person event. And so like we're obviously right now adapting and trying to figure out how we're going to run our event remote. So if we're a remote event, we're going to have to think, and because sometimes working with stakeholders doesn't work the best when it's fully remote, I guess. Because like we invite the stakeholders to attend the conference with us, and they sit down in rooms with us. So oftentimes, like if you have a very technically savvy stakeholder, you could do these like a remote event that's going to work really well for them. But if they're not very technically savvy, perhaps we won't be able to work with certain nonprofits, if that's making sense.
So does it have to be related to a nonprofit? Or can it be like, hey, I've got this great idea to check in on old people during coronavirus, or deliver groceries to old people during coronavirus, or something else?
Yeah. So like that's how we're different than like kind of typical hackathons, where, like a lot of times you go to a hackathon, you just kind of like hack on things and then they get thrown away at the end of the weekend. Like we know, like we identify specific problems and needs at it doesn't have to be a nonprofit. It could just be like an organization that's doing good, that not necessarily is a 501c3, but is like just someone out there that's doing good in the world. And like we're happy to work with them. But like we do want like an identified problem that we can solve, like using our skills. And like that's why as well too, like it's not just like we don't just start like the weekend of our event, we start working with like these organizations 6 to 8 weeks before our events, and we start like drilling down requirements and needs, and so like we have actual problems that we're going to be solving.
Right. And if somebody wants to get involved that doesn't do Ruby, I mean, is there some mentorship, or are you expecting people who contribute to already know how to build apps with Ruby, Rails, Rack, whatever?
No, definitely. So like that's part of a kind of the mission. Like, so Ruby for Good has a 3-part mission, and like the first part is obviously like that's the easy part to understand. Like, let's help make the world gooder and help these organizations who are, doing so much good in the world. But then like the other 2 parts are like, one, to kind of grow the technical community, especially those in the technical community that are underrepresented. And then the third is just to provide like leadership opportunities. And so like, even if you've never coded before, you're welcome to come out, and you're welcome to, like, if you want to be a developer, like if you have other skills and you want to participate, like we have a lot of designers, we have like project and product people come. And so like, however you want to get involved, like there's an unending amount of work for people to do.
I'm pretty familiar with a local organization that is called Code for Charlotte. They're now called Open Charlotte Brigade, I'm sorry. And they're part of like the Code for America Brigade, which is like the national organization. So are you familiar with this? How are you different? Like, yeah, what's different between the two of you, or whatever? Or are you like partners, whatever?
No. So like we're a little different than them. Like Code for America is amazing. They do amazing, awesome work. But like their mission statement is like, I think it's like, we believe government can work, and so like they're focused on helping government and government agencies and exposing data. And like, and I recognize that that's crazy important. Like, I work in government, and I know how important this is. But like we're focused on nonprofits, and so who we feel are like underrepresented, like in kind of the tech sphere. And so like, yeah, their mission is government, ours is nonprofits.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
So now that I have my hands around this a little bit more, do you want to just reiterate what the mission is of Ruby for Good? Because now I think I'm kind of going to get it.
No, sure. Like I said, like the mission is basically to make the world better, however we can, and like using our skills. Because like there are a lot of nonprofits out there that are, people out there that really need people with our skill sets, but would never be able to afford us. And so, we're trying to, provide our skill sets to people who need us, like generally. And then like the other things, like I said, growing the community, and then just providing like leadership opportunities to people in the community, like regardless of your skill level. And so even if you're a brand new junior or if you're a senior, we want to provide you those leadership and educational opportunities.
Is there an equivalent like national like, are there other organizations like you doing, I don't know, Python for Good or JavaScript for Good or anything like that? Are there any of those kinds of things going on?
Not really, or not that I know about. Like there is a Python for Good that we're trying to also kind of get off the ground, but it's been a little slow going, and we had some venue, like we did it in 2017 and 2018, and then 2019 we had a venue issue, so it didn't happen, and then now with the coronavirus, probably not going to have it this year. I don't know anything about it, anything for like JavaScript for Good or Go for Good or Elixir for Good or any of the other multitude of languages out there, though.
Okay. So you've talked us through some general projects, and you guys have like kind of an environment theme going on. You said that we're probably familiar with the diaper app that you did. I unfortunately am not. Would you talk through maybe that project or another one? Just kind of talk about like what you did.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it was back in 2015 or 2016, we initially started this project. It was for the Portland Diaper Bank, like just a single diaper bank. We built, her name was Rachel, a diaper bank inventory management system. And like, if you're not familiar with diaper banks, they're like food banks, but they are for diapers because can't afford diapers for your kids. It's, puts you in a really bad situation. You can't put them in daycare if you don't have diapers. If you can't put your kids in daycare, you have to stay home with them. And then, then you're just even in a worse situation because you can't go work. And so,
makes sense.
Yeah. And so then so for Rachel, she was using a combination of like spreadsheets and like just different ways of like keeping track of all her inventory. And like, there wasn't really anything out there for diaper banks, like kind of for their specific need. And so we sat down with her and we built her like an inventory management system. and and she loved it. It was kind of like naive that first year. It leveraged active admin a lot and kind of a bunch of different like just off the shelf things like in Ruby. But like, so we built it. She loved it. She took it to then like she was showing it off like that year at the big national diaper bank conference. And it turns out that every other diaper bank has a similar need. And so then like the next year at our event, we rebuilt it as a multi-tenant application that like any diaper bank could use. And then from there, like we had our first kind of few signups, and then now there's like 100 plus diaper banks across the country using it, helping. Like I think this year it's on track to help like over 2 million kids, which is kind of cool.
Sweet. Okay, so it's a bunch of volunteers giving their labor. How do you pay for, I guess, hosting now that you have a bunch of people, using this app or whatever?
Yeah, no, that's great. And like, so Microsoft, and I don't know if anyone here is affiliated with them, but if you are, or anyone's listening, we love Microsoft. They provide free hosting to projects that are like to nonprofits. They give them like $3,500 a year of credit on Microsoft Azure, which is amazing. And so like, because like, these projects aren't even having 100 diaper banks using this, like it's still not a large application. And like $3,500 is more than, like any of our apps is ever going to need. And then I guess if we ever got to the point where, that $3,500 wouldn't cover it, then we could figure something out then. But yeah, it's fantastic that they do this.
Awesome.
So in order for you to run this, do you have to be a nonprofit yourself?
Well, no, so we are so Ruby for Good is a nonprofit. And like, that was just like it wasn't because like we need it to be, but it was just some of the benefits out there, like for free, Google Suite, some of the perks that you get for being a nonprofit. We signed
have people donate,
right?
Stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. I'm a little curious because I know people that have other causes that may not fall under Ruby for Good or Code for America or some of these others, but want to put stuff together. So if let's say that I wanted to set one up and it's, I'm just going to make something up that's totally absurd, but let's say I have something that benefits people that have left hands, right? And so it's like Code for Left Hands. How would I go set that up?
I don't know if I understand. Like,
so if I wanted to create like Ruby for Good, but instead it's Ruby for left-handed people, right? As a nonprofit that benefits, whatever, right? I'm trying to pick something that's like nonpartisan that nobody's going to have a feeling about, right?
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Geez, I don't even know. I guess because like we started with kind of finding our base community of people who want to do good and or people who were interested in a similar thing, like kind of tweeting out and like we were also like there were a couple like I was affiliated with a couple nonprofits who were doing kind of this doing this work before I was even affiliated, before I started Ruby for Good, and I was helping them, and then you just talk to your friends, talk to your community. It's like, oh, I'm working on this thing that's helping helping these people with mental disabilities and like finding get housing, and like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, do you need some help? And just other people were interested, and because I guess you find a community around it, and then that community grows. And so people who want to help left-handed people, whoever they are, they would probably congregate and they'd find out what you're doing.
Right, and then you just go to an attorney and set up the 501c3 if that's the direction you want to go, or.
Yeah, like I used there was just like an online service I used to cost I don't know, a couple $100 to get the paperwork and fill it out.
So if I want to get involved with this, how do I do it?
Oh, definitely. So like if you want to get involved, you can join our Slack community, and then you could jump in there and say, hey, I have some bandwidth. I can give a couple hours. I can give like whatever your time is, and then the different people in there, I'm sure, would say like, hey, this is our diaper project, and we could use some help with our mailer, or this or X, Y, or Z problem that they're having, or hey, here's our Terra Stories application that helps preserve the oral histories of people of Indigenous people, or like these different projects. And whatever was interesting to you, you could just jump into our GitHub the GitHub repo and find an issue and start contributing. And obviously, you could also come to one of our events, but with with Corona, I'm not quite sure when our next in-person one is. We're going to be doing a remote event in April, and so we'll see how that turns out. But you're all definitely welcome to attend that event.
Nice. Do you have details for that event up somewhere where people can find it so we can put it in the show notes?
Definitely, yeah. by the time the show goes up, it should be like it is our West Coast event that we're turning into the remote. Like we call that one Ruby by the Bay, but like there's a link to it right on the Ruby for Good website, and so we'll probably just change that link to just sign up for the remote event. And so
awesome. So do all of these projects? I assume we're talking about Ruby for Good. Do all of these projects use Ruby? Do you have projects that don't use Ruby?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So it's by and large, like there's unlike a hackathon where you go and like, there's all these like disparate like skill sets and, there's C developers and Java and Ruby and Python. We do have just generally Ruby developers there. So you can kind of focus, but like we've had some machine learning projects where we helped a Red Panda researcher where we built her like a video classification thing using like TensorFlow and like machine learning. But by and large, so the projects are all Ruby projects.
Okay.
I'm super fascinated by this. So you're saying that it's not a hackathon, it's a long-term commitment to some of these issues. So let's say that there is a project out there that I want to start, or maybe there's a nonprofit that I want to associate with and help with their mission. How do I tie that into Ruby for Good? Like, what's the process of getting that all set up?
Oh, definitely. So on our website, we have a project submission. So like if you're affiliated with a local nonprofit that you volunteer at, or that you know about, or like a family member, a friend volunteers at that you know about, like definitely like submit it. And then like there's a bunch of just kind of questions like what do they do? And we'll get in touch with them, or we'll get in touch with you. Like perhaps you want to be really involved in the project and kind of be like this project lead, and if it's a good fit for us, we'll undertake it.
Yeah, my kid's charter school though is set up as a nonprofit, for example, right? And that's mostly for tax reasons. It's also a state entity, and it's probably not a good fit for Ruby for Good. So my guess is that there is some vetting that goes on afterward. It kind of sounded like that from what you were saying too, where it's, okay, we're going to evaluate this and see if it makes sense for Ruby for Good. So are there some candidates that are kind of no-brainers that you think might come your way over the next few months?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. Aside from obviously maybe there's going to be a project coming in the next couple of months with regards to the coronavirus and COVID-19, and some figure out if there's some way we can help with that or help with people helping with that. But outside of that, I really think right now there's a lot of need and desire to help with anything related to the environment. There's all the horrible environmental news we're hearing day in, day out. There's a lot of interest in people from people that they want to contribute to projects like that. And so that's why I think that's why this year was going to be focused on environmental issues. But that's not to say that we're when I say too, when we vet these projects, a lot of times it's just vetting too to make sure that these aren't something that it's just beyond what we want to build. And what I mean by that is we don't want to go rebuild Facebook for someone because it's already out there. It's oh, this is way more we're not going to rebuild an entire giant thing out there when there's a solution out there. We'll just say go use Trello. We're not going to rebuild Trello because there's a free tool that you can use. That's more what I was talking about.
I gotcha. Makes sense.
This is a really great thing to be doing. I went to a talk in Hacker News London a few years ago, which I thought was going to be people doing things for charity. But what it was actually about was a guy who was trying to make money out of charities. So it was basically a kind of tech consultancy that were charging a lot of money for people in the non-profit sector. So it's really great that you're kind of organizing this to genuinely help people. That's a fantastic thing for the Ruby community.
Yeah, and it really draws a really special group of people. I feel if you, well, I guess it would have to because people pay to come to our events. So people are paying to come do what they do in their day job for free or for someone else. And so I guess it really tells you the just amazing people who attend these events. So
do you find that the Ruby community is a little bit different to other programming communities?
Oh, definitely. I came to the Ruby community actually from the Python community, which also has a really good group of people. But one of the things that we really like about the Ruby community, or I really like the Ruby community, is the whole Minneswan thing that you always that was I was taught that early on. Mats is nice, and so we are nice. Kind of that tenet of the Ruby community, and so. So you'll see on like every kind of Ruby for Good thing we do, on the back of all our T-shirts, on our mugs, we always put Minneswan on there somewhere just to denote that, like hey, like this is great and this is special.
Yeah, I've certainly found the Ruby community to be quite unique compared to other language communities I've been in. The word I'm looking for is weird. I find it's a language that draws eccentrics, but that can be a good thing too. It takes all sorts, and it's a fantastic language to glue things together. How many of your projects are kind of using Ruby as glue to kind of interconnect different services?
Oh, geez. Well, most of them, like even that like TensorFlow machine learning project, we still have kind of like a web front end to that, like a little bit of like a tiny little Rails app. But then, like even though in the background it's all TensorFlow and and a lot of shell commands and like Unix commands, but those are all still being shelled out to by using Ruby and like system calls through Ruby. So,
what is the TensorFlow project?
So I met with Elizabeth Freeman. She is so if you Google her, she's kind of a fascinating lady. She's studying like infant mortality of red pandas, because like half of all red pandas that are born, like whether they're born in the wild or in captivity, they just die and they don't know why. And so like she pioneered this program where they created all these nest boxes, which like approximates a red panda like kind of nest that they live in with cameras in it. And so she had like 12,000 hours of red panda, like baby red panda footage of like red pandas going in and out of these nest box having babies. And
that's a lot of hours.
Yeah, exactly. And so what she was doing is she was having like graduate students come in and like watch this and like watch these and classify like when they're on camera, when they're not on camera, just like kind of like further research, so then they can go back and then like if and when one of the cubs dies for whatever reason, then they can go back and they can try and like determine like what they were doing, what the causes were. And this is like a kind of like a perfect reason or a perfect use for computers. Like, hey, like computers can watch video. And it was a pretty basic like kind of training model too. Like it's very binary. It's the pandas on camera or it's not, because like I said, there's 12,000 hours, and like sometimes they're on camera in the nest box and sometimes they're not. And so so we built this and went through and classified it all for her and just saved them thousands of hours of grad student time.
Yeah, so instead of using the grad students as kind of Mechanical Turk style panda clickers, then you build a internet connect between presumably OpenCV, or was it actually the TensorFlow itself?
No, it was actually TensorFlow itself.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then did you put an interface on it? How did they interact with this?
Yeah, so there was that was the one that had a little bit of a Rails front end that they would then upload these videos to, because they had all these videos in like different kind of places. Like some were on like this person's computer, some were on that person's computer, and so they would just like upload them, and it would watch like quote unquote the videos and classify them. And like one of the things like we found though too is like that our classifier was a lot more accurate than the students watching it, because the students, like these grad students, they would get bored and they would be like fast forwarding, because like these videos were like 12 hours long, and so like they would be like kind of fast forwarding, and so they would miss sometimes like the chunks where the panda would come in and out, because we thought our training data was bad, because like they had all these videos that were like pre-classified, and so then we were comparing ours against theirs, and like ours was like had things that theirs didn't have, and so then we were worried that the classifier wasn't working. Then it just turned out that their students were doing we're missing some of the intervals.
So you put all the panda watchers out of a job?
I guess so, yeah. And like because that is a pretty amazing job, watching red pandas all day. So
yeah, I want to do that. Wow,
called YouTube, folks. Oh, live pandas. Sorry.
Well, there's a bit of a Schrodinger's panda effect going on here, because they're kind of watching to see if the panda's there or not.
Have you thought about making the transition into a data analytics career? Springboard's data analytics career track is similar to an online data analytics bootcamp, with the difference that a career track follows a project-based learning methodology where students work on real-life projects that employers are interested in. The program is 100% online, and every student is paired with a data analytics expert who provides unlimited one-on-one mentorship throughout the program via video conference calls.
Springboard offers a job guarantee in all their career tracks. This means you don't have to pay for the program until you secure a new job in data analytics. The Freelancer Show is exclusively offering a scholarship of $500 to interested applicants based in the US or Canada. Make sure to use the code DA Springboard when you enroll. There are only 20 scholarships available, and scholarships are awarded on a first-come, first-served basis. Check if you qualify by applying at devchat.tv/DA. That's for data analytics. The application is free, and it takes about 10 minutes. Just to remind you, if you want a new job in the tech industry and you're passionate about data visualization and business analytics, then Dashboard's data analytics career track might be the right choice for you. Remember, if you don't get a job in tech after completing the program, you don't pay.
I found like the place that really shines for solving problems where maybe people have like a real, not a business case in this situation, but something they spend a lot of time on, and they know that you can do this, but they can't get that final step into kind of putting the blocks together. Then the sheer number of gems are out there now, and the real ease of command line text processing. So you can do it in, like I said, just a few hours. And wow, if you can save people 12,000 hours of CCTV watching time, that's a big result.
No, definitely. And the cool thing about that one is, I guess, like they're looking at expanding it now to like some of their other partner universities or institutions. Cause like Elizabeth is affiliated with the Smithsonian National Zoo, but apparently there's also some red panda researchers in Cincinnati and San Diego, and a group in mainland China that they're also affiliated with, that they're looking at maybe retraining the models for like their specific nest boxes too, and using them with all their data as well. So it's really exciting.
I don't want to get too much into it in case I don't know what how deep you got into this one, but how did you get TensorFlow to talk to Ruby?
Yeah. So, and again, like it was just a lot of like shelling out. So you how familiar are you with TensorFlow? And so, but like it was just like on like shelling out the commands, getting the return values back and reading them. So like it wasn't as complicated as you might think. So.
Well, I'm going to go and give that a go now. That's really interesting. There weren't any specific gems that you found were like, yep, this is what talks.
No, I actually didn't use any gems at all. And like we used, it was like the TensorFlow like inception classifier, which, because again, it was just a very, like that one, because it's very Boolean, like it's either there or it isn't. And so it made it really easy to just, like I said, just like look for like this state, it's like there or not. And so it was really easy to train with a bunch of pictures, with red pandas, and train it with a bunch of just empty nest box pictures.
You mentioned the environment. Now, one of the things about the environment is when you're dealing with monitoring projects, as you said, you've always got to talk to hardware. So if you're doing like a kind of temperature modeling project, you need to talk to the temperature module. If it's a kind of weird Zigbee thing you've got around the site, and you need to have that layer. How much hardware talking have you done with Ruby for Good, and how have you found what works and what doesn't?
Yeah, kind of one of the original projects I did that got a lot of, I spoke at a bunch of conferences, was I did a bee monitoring project. We're monitoring beehives for this researcher he was studying like colony collapse disorder.
Rubies, good.
Yeah, rubies for good. And so he was.
Why am I laughing at that?
I have heard so many bee puns, but no, we were using like Raspberry Pis and like just some different things like that. But like the reason I used Raspberry Pis in that project was just that I had like 4 of them sitting like on my that I had bought. They were sitting on my shelf that I wasn't doing anything with, and so it was free because we didn't really have a budget. It was just a professor I'd met at a university that lives nearby who. He's like, "Oh, you're a computer person. Can you help me solve this problem?" And so then we were monitoring like the weight, the temperature, and whatnot inside beehives.
Yeah, there's a strong interest in bees in the last few years because of all the trouble they've been having, and I think people still quite aren't sure what's causing the bee populations to decline so much. They had a big Kickstarter for like a synthetic hive. Have you seen that one? The kind of hive where it takes the honey out on its own.
Yes.
You don't have to reach in and get the honey. I like bees. I think they're great. So that would have been like the Raspberry Pi camera module.
Actually, there was no cameras in that one. It was just using a sensor, like a single sensor that went inside the hive, like to measure the temperature. Because like something cool about bees is like keep the internal temperature of the hive the same, whether it's like the middle of winter or the middle of summer. So like if it's the middle of winter, they have these bees that because like something neat they learned is when they pull those honeycombs out, there's always like a few holes that aren't filled in.
Yep.
And it turns out that they have a special bee that breaks its wings off, and they go into those holes and they just spend all day like vibrating to generate heat. And
No.
yeah, it's a I guess it's a I don't know, it's a life. But
doesn't it kill them when they do that or something?
I don't know, but
Okay.
like so they generate heat, and then they have other bees that they absorb like the heat in their body, and then they go and they leave the hive and like dissipate it, and so it's kind of neat. And so like, that's why we had the probe in the hive, and then we had a couple of like these weight sensors under the hive to look at like weight of the hive, because this Herman, the professor I was working with, he was trying to catch a hive before it collapses, because like he wants to like kind of study like the life cycle of a hive collapsing. So if he could see a hive, like if he could kind of get these warning signs, and so like maybe he sees that okay, the temperature in this one is fluctuating, or like the weight is not going up, because like you should see like the weight kind of like throughout the year kind of linearly going up. Like obviously it goes up at night and then down in the morning, when all the bees come back and the bees leave, like there's like these little jumps. But like kind of like overall there should be this linear increase. And like that's also why we had like a temperature and moisture probe outside, because like if there's lots of rain and stuff, like that would you can, if you control for that, that's why like maybe the weight would stay steady, because like the bees aren't going out when it's like storming. And so we were just like putting these, and it was also kind of cool because like they were solar powered, and because like they were out in the middle of like fields and stuff, or they are out in the middle of fields. And so so the researchers would come, they would connect to the like the Raspberry Pi, like on whatever their iPad or something. They would pull up beehive.local and look at the charts. Because I guess like they have all this like fancy, expensive equipment that they can use, but you just don't want to leave it out in the middle of a field, like a $10,000 camera that can like see into the hive, like through the walls and stuff. But if they know it's going to collapse, they'll put a grad student on it and sit with the camera and collect samples and do all the things that they want to do.
So in that case, you kind of made a totally self-contained bee monitoring Raspberry Pi device.
Yes. Yeah.
What was the device called?
Oh, I don't know. It was just a Raspberry Pi.
It didn't. I was hoping there'd be some kind of bee-related or honey-related pun in there. That's what I'm shooting for.
And we really missed the boat there, sadly. And like the funny thing with that is like Herman, the professor that we work with, is he's from Colombia originally, and I was talking to him because we've been monitoring hives for a few years now, but like not a single one that we've been monitoring has collapsed. And so, which is great, I guess, for those bees, but like it's bad for his research because monitoring all these hives, like because again he's trying to catch one before it collapses so he can like get all this data.
Right.
And so I told him, well, all we need to do is just monitor every beehive, and then none will ever collapse. And but I guess he didn't get my humor because he's like, no, that wouldn't work. They will still collapse. And so.
Professors, what are you going to do? What model of Raspberry Pi did you use?
Oh, it was one of the earlier ones, like just like a Raspberry Pi or maybe even a Pi 2.
Was it a 2B?
You're worse than I am, Luke.
Sorry.
So I definitely did some looking up with this. I always thought that temperature regulation was a sacrificial act. I couldn't find anything on it, so I'm just full of crap. But to move us on from bees so that maybe we can reduce some of our puns for a little while until we find a new thing. Can you talk about what's involved as an individual coder? If I wanted to get involved, it looks like there's kind of two tracks getting involved in Ruby for Good. There's kind of like the lead kind of track and the volunteer track, or at least those are the terms you have on your site.
Yeah, definitely. So like if you want to lead a project, like if you're an individual contributor and you want to come in and lead a project, and like we obviously we help you with that, we'll put you in touch with one of the nonprofit that has reached out to us that needs help, or like one of our existing projects, because like people cycle on, and just like any open source project, like people like leave the team, they join the team, and so like we found too like that like people often have family members or whatnot that volunteer or work at like different places. So like maybe you have a relative that works at a diaper bank, and so like, hey, I want to join the diaper bank team, and we can cycle you on as a lead, and then like someone that will like help create issues, review pull requests, and kind of like lead a team. But if you're just like an individual contributor that wants to like just kind of like, hey, I've got 2 hours this weekend, or I have some spare bandwidth that I want to make a difference with. Like definitely just, like I said, you can jump into our Slack room. You can just go to our GitHub page, like just github.com/Ruby for Good. Take a look at the different projects, look for an open issue, and, like claim it, say, hey, I'll take care of this issue that helps diaper banks, or I'll take care of this issue on Voices of Consent, or whichever one of our projects.
Are all projects then open source so that I can just hop on, or are some of them private and thus I would have to like join the organization, get vetted, and then somehow have to join?
Yeah, so like the vast majority of the projects are open source. And like some projects, after we finish them, like we kind of like transfer them out and give them to the organization to kind of manage. Like maybe they have like Ruby developers, or like they have a way of kind of maintaining it themselves. Like there have been 1 or 2 projects that we haven't like that have been like kind of closed source all through, and like they're private and they're private repos, and like that's not like like we want everything we do to be open source, but like these were like the few times we've done that, and the one I'm thinking of in my head, it was for like a women's shelter and like dealing with like a vulnerable population, and like they didn't even want anyone to know that this application existed, and so and we want to obviously keep people safe, and so like that project is like it exists, but it's obviously in a private repo and not available for anyone to know what it does or anything about it.
Sure. So for the most part, I could, without any, I don't know, I guess gates, for the most part, just go and just join a project and like give some of my time by, I don't know, fixing an issue, just like I would for any open source project. Some of them requires a little more work.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Yeah. Just, like I said, yeah, jump in. They're open source. They should all have like kind of getting starting guides and things like that. And then, yeah, grab an issue, or if you see an issue that's not labeled, create it and contribute.
Can you talk a little bit more about, maybe I'm just the one that didn't get the distinction. What are you looking for, or what exactly is the lead track? It kind of sounded like, oh, hey, maybe somebody already in the volunteer community, but just to kind of help people understand the difference. I mean, there's obviously, from the word lead, a difference in responsibilities here.
Yeah. So for example, like a lead is going to typically kick off a new project. And so like right now we're kicking off a project for CASA, which is an organization that is like court appointed social advocates. It's people who basically they help foster kids. And like they're a large national organization. They have like 850 plus chapters across the country. And right, they help foster kids. And so we're building them something. And like using them as an example, and you came to us and said like, hey Sean, I want to be a lead. And so like we have leads for that project, but like we would say, okay, cool, you're going to be the lead for this CASA project. Like, how's that sound? And like, assuming that's a project you'd want to be a lead on and you want to help foster kids, what we'd then like kind of do some introductions with some of the nonprofit stakeholders at CASA, where then, we have, like I said, we have a whole kind of script that you follow, like narrowing down the issues, like figure out what the MVP is that we're going to build them. And then over the course of like 6 to 8 weeks, you identify all that. And then after those 6 to 8 weeks, we kick off the project.
Sweet. That's super helpful.
Have you managed to convert any of the people in the companies that have, not companies, any people in the non-profits that have come for you to help? Have you managed to convert any of those people into coders by showing them, look, this is super easy. You can just do this.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Like more than one. Like Rudo, who was who is the stakeholder on our Terra Stories project, and like Terra Stories is this really cool project that actually works offline, and they use it in like the Amazon and different places to preserve like the oral histories of like Indigenous people. Like Rudo was just like, he was just kind of the stakeholder. He works at this nonprofit, and he came in and he like, cause he came to our events and he sits with the team. And like in the past couple of years, he's turned into a coder himself. Like, and like, it's phenomenal to see that just Right. That, and so I imagine in a year or two that he'll be leading the team himself and leading the code, because it's just it's amazing to see.
Awesome. We're kind of getting toward the end of our time. Anything else that we want to dive into on this before we get to picks? I guess one question that I have, and I've seen this in open source too, is with volunteers, how do you maintain code quality?
Oh yeah, good question. Well, like we try and use some of the tools that are out there, like the code linting tools, the Rubicop, the Code Climate, things like that, just to for that kind of thing. And I guess we're just like generally we're fairly lucky that a lot of the projects get led by very senior people. Like we have like Rails core contributors who participate, things like that. And I'm not saying that the quality in all the projects is fantastic, but it's on some of it, on a lot of them, the projects are decent quality.
Awesome. All right. Well, if people want to connect with you or stay current on what you're doing with Ruby for Good or anything like that, what are the best places to go do that?
Sure. Twitter, probably. I'm just like at Sean Marcia on Twitter, or at Ruby for Good on Twitter. Will usually find me. Or our Slack channel, that's open invite. You can just grab an invite off of our website.
All right, very cool.
Early in my career, I figured out which jobs were worth working at and which ones weren't, mostly by trial and error. I created a system that I used to find jobs and later contracts as a freelancer. If you're looking for a job or trying to figure out where you should go next, then check out my book, The Max Coder's Guide to Finding Your Dream Developer Job. The book walks you through figuring out what you want, vetting companies that meet your criteria, meeting that company's employees, and getting them to recommend you for a job. Don't settle for whoever has listed their job on the job board. Go out and proactively find the job you'll love. Buy the book at devchat.tv/jobbook. That's devchat.tv/jobbook.
Well, let's do some picks. John, do you want to start us with picks?
Yeah, well, since we're all staying home for the coronavirus, and I guess now that RailsConf is off, my first pick is actually, so a former rogue, Andrew Mason, is a mentee of mine, and I guess he started trying to see if people might want to do a sort of like an alt conference kind of thing. So I will have the website in the show notes or whatever, but basically, if that's like a remote kind of conference is interesting to you, I'm definitely like, I thought it was an awesome idea. I myself am volunteering to try and see if maybe this will happen, but I'm going to miss RailsConf. It's an alternative thing. So that's one thing. And then secondly, also because we're all at home all the time, and now all of a sudden we need more entertainment or whatever have you, or maybe, you need to keep your kid busy for 30 minutes because you haven't washed the dishes for the day. I have a love-hate relationship with Disney, but we have Disney Plus now because, well, we're out of things on Netflix. So begrudging, I guess, pick for Disney.
Nice. I've been working on something for Alt Rails online conference too. So I'll probably just check in with Andrew and make sure that we're not going to have too close a conflict or anything.
To be honest, I would love to have two conferences. Just going to throw that out there.
I'm good with that. I just don't want them to be close to the same time or be competing for speakers or anything like that, right? I'd rather have two awesome conferences that it's like, I went to the one, I went to the other, and they both were awesome. And I didn't get, right, you know what I'm saying? And then on that same vein, I'm going to jump in. I'm also putting together online meetups because a lot of the meetup groups also got canceled. So I'm trying to hold them one in the afternoon US time and one in the morning US time. And then what I'm finding is that, so if I do it at 4 p.m. Mountain Time, that's 2200 UTC, which is rather inconvenient for Europeans, especially as you move further east. So I'm actually going to be doing two. And the second one's going to be at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, which is 1700 UTC.
That's much easier.
Yeah, and that winds up being midnight in Japan, but the Japanese folks can join in at 700, or however you say it, the Japanese Standard Time on the one that I'm doing on Monday afternoon. It'll just be Tuesday morning. So yeah, they might have to get up a little bit early. But what I'm finding is that turns out to be rather convenient for people in like Australia and stuff, because that's like 9 a.m. their time.
So on that subject, are you open to maybe partnering with local meetup groups that maybe are trying to make this kind of thing happen themselves, but maybe perhaps
Yes.
don't have as many people signed up. How would you do that?
Probably at this point, best to email me, chuck@devchat.tv. I'm definitely open to helping them run something. I had a chat with somebody from the Reason Association for Reason ML on React Roundup right before this. And he was talking that the Reason Association wanted to do a whole bunch of meetups across Europe and they can't anymore. And so, I basically just said, well, let me help you, right? Because if all I have to do is make sure you have a place to go to do it. In other words, you use my Crowdcast account. So I set up the event for you and then maybe show up and say, hey, by the way, I'm the podcast guy. Go check out my show. I'm totally good just making that happen.
I think there's going to be a lot of that.
So yeah, if somebody out there organizes a meetup and you're looking for some help there, or if you're an organizer of a conference and you're going, yeah, we got to shut this thing down, contact me and let me help you make it work. I mean, yeah, I would like to get paid to consult on some of this stuff because I've had some sponsors come to me and say, there's too much uncertainty and we're holding back on any spending, right? So they're not renewing. So it would help me out. But honestly, I want to do this for the community as much as I can. And so, if I have to do it for free, then it just boils down to, do I have a few minutes to walk you through the basics, right? And then if you need something more in depth, then you probably have to pay me for that time. But I'm doing what I can to help folks out. The ngconf organizers for Angular are good friends of mine. So I just talked them through it for like 20 minutes. I'm not necessarily willing to do that for everybody. I don't want to commit to that and then have people going, oh, he blew me off because I'm busy. But I'm definitely willing to help out where I can. So if you're stuck in a bind, let me know. And yeah, we can consult, or you can, send me a few bucks if you have it, or we can just work something out so that we can make sure that the community has what they need to have. So yeah, I'm totally open to helping people out for whatever they feel like they can give to make it worth it. I totally cut John off. Any other picks, John?
No, you're fine. I actually did want to know. I was actually thinking of a completely different angle, which is if you have these meetups going already, or your talks or whatever, someone's giving a Ruby talk or something, and like the logo, maybe having it sort of be an event on the local Ruby meetups page or whatever, where they log into the same event or whatever kind of thing.
That's not a bad idea.
Kind of
I could reach out to them and just say, hey, here's the link, put it on your events.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Good deal. Luke, do you have some picks?
My pick is Okra, OCRA. Probably familiar with it. It's a one-click Ruby application. And if you've written like a Ruby app, like maybe a Beehive monitoring app, but for some reason they need to run it on Windows, this is the absolute easiest way I found in and out of running Ruby code on Windows, and critically getting someone who's not an expert to make it run. Because we can all run Ruby on Windows, but the actual install process is still quite difficult for some people. So this bundles the whole of Ruby and all your gems into one exe. When it runs, it unpacks it into a temp directory and just runs it. So it's real simple for people to use. OCRA, one-click Ruby application. There is a newer project. There is a newer project called Releasey, is the new way of doing it, but I haven't used it yet, so my pick is Okra.
Nice. All right, I'm going to jump in with a few picks. So I am going to put links in. It might take me a minute to get them set up for the Ruby meetup. So if you're looking for that, it'll be in the show notes. And then, yeah, I mean, it's been kind of interesting to watch people react to the coronavirus stuff and just people not knowing exactly where they're going to end up. One thing that I found very, very encouraging, so it's mostly just a pick of people, but I've seen stories on Facebook and on news feeds and things like that where folks have actually like gone out and gone shopping for their elderly neighbors so they don't have to go to the store and interact with people since they seem to be at higher risk. I've seen neighborhoods. Somebody put a countywide group together here in Utah County, basically said, if you need something, post it. And if you have extra stuff, post it. Right. And so if there's something that you're out of at the store, like toilet paper, I still don't get why people ran toilet paper, whatever. They could post on there and then other people would just drop it off at their house. And, people have really come together on this stuff. I mean, we don't know what the full outcome here is going to be, but just people being good people. And I think that's kind of what the show is all about for the most part, too, talking about Ruby for Good, is just people being good people. So I'm going to pick that as well. And then the last pick I have is Slack. And it's not necessarily anything in particular that, Slack, and it's something we kind of all take for granted. But I'm part of a handful of communities on Slack that have just been awesome. And it's a nice way to interact with people. I work from home anyway. It didn't really affect my routine other than that I've had to run and do tech support for my kids in the middle of the day. But yeah, just having communities out there and having people, I've had people check in on me. I've been checking in on other people. A lot of that is happening over Slack or over text. And so, just be aware of other folks, especially folks who are at risk, and just check in on them and make sure that they're okay. And yeah, we'll all get through this, because I think generally people are good people. They're good at taking care of the people around them. And so I guess this is a little bit of a pick of faith in humanity. But yeah, I've been really heartened by a lot of that. Yeah, some of the panic is scary and there are people out there being jerks. But for the most part, I've really seen people come together and I've been really, really happy and impressed by it. So there you go. A little bit of hope. Sean, do you have some picks for us?
Yeah, I have two. First one is a book. It's Flour, Water, Salt, Yeast. It's a book on baking bread with just like those 4 ingredients, and you make really nice artisan bread. So if that's ever something you wanted to get into, I've been baking a lot of bread, and it's just been a lot of fun. And I guess like my second one is a shameless plug, the Ruby for Good conference or remote event we're going to be doing next month that everyone should come and participate in and help do some good.
Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you for coming, Sean.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for inspiring people to help, because sometimes that's all it takes, and it's important.
Absolutely.
All right. We'll have another one next week. Max out, everybody.
Take care.
Be safe.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CacheFly.com to learn more.